Welcome, Troy Love. It's so great to see you. I always am kind of surprised that it's the fourth week of the month. It's
I
like,
know,
wow, it
right?
happened again,
Just
So
like that. We're
I
almost
know.
through the year already. It's like,
I know. I was like, it's almost September. Oh my gosh, that means it's almost fall. So it's just kind of crazy, one day at a time, things just keep moving forward. So,
yep, already the Halloween decorations are on sale at your local hardware store. I was like,
yeah,
whoa.
I'm not going there yet. So, yeah, but can't do that. So what's showing up in your office these days? What are people looking for help with?
Well, I just had an interesting experience this morning. I was listening to a podcast. I can't even remember what it was, but the individual was talking about integrating feelings, and he was working with a little boy who felt who was acting out with a lot of anger and rage,
Mm,
and he was working with him, and he tried to help him identify where he feels joy, and he identified that joy was outside of his body, and that was not something that I've ever thought about, because usually, like when I'm doing retreats or people are working through the workbook, I'm saying, okay, where do you feel the anger in your body? Where do you feel the sadness in your body? And so he was identifying that this little boy was feeling joy outside of his body. So in fact, I just tried it with somebody this morning and who was feeling some fear. And I said, do you feel fear more in your body or out of your body? And she described feeling it out of her body mostly, a little bit in, mostly out. And I thought, oh my gosh, how many of us actually don't we've dissociated our feelings, they're outside of our body, and so this is what it looks like, feels like outside, and then what would it be like to bring it in? And so we worked with her to bring it in, and instead of the terror that she thought she would have when she brought the fear into her body, she actually felt peace. She
wow.
actually felt grounded, and I'm like, whoa, that is something, because I've talked to people, where do you feel the joy? I don't feel joy. um it just like a light bulb went on this morning. I thought, well, that's because it's probably not in their body. So I'm going to change some of the things that I do now because of that.
Yeah. Well, and I hadn't thought of that. And like if somebody said that to me, I would think, oh, that they are not even in touch with any joy. Like they perceive that there's no joy in their life. And but to reframe it as it's dissociated and joy is out there,
Yeah,
But even the fear, I was like, oh my gosh, it must be almost terrifying to try to bring it into your body, like that would be the last place I want it. And, so to be
exactly.
able to integrate it and have it be less than you imagined, kind of right sizing it versus the, catastrophizing it, that would be a huge shift.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I never thought of it like that before. So I'm like, well, we're going to try that, see what happens.
Um, oh, so somebody says, can you tell me about the group for betrayed partners that starts in a half an hour? Is that a webinar and I can join? So it's a work group. So I'll tell you a bit about the work groups. Troy has another work group coming, I think August 30th, right?
Yes, next
So
Wednesday.
yes. So on our website, there is a list of website or web work groups. So on Seeking Integrity, there's a work group tab. They are 6-week courses, 90 minutes per week. Angela Spearman leads the Betrayed Partner one. They are fee based, but they are 6 weeks live facilitated, really good content. We have everything from Betrayed Partners that does start in a half an hour, and I'll pay attention to my email. You can email me, Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com. If you want to join that, I'll have to manually add you at this point. But my point with the work groups is those are psychoeducation. Many therapists suggest that people participate in those along with the work that they are doing in their therapy groups, because it's what you don't get in therapy. We had a sex addiction 101 that started on last Saturday, and the guys will be working through a 3 circle plan, a relapse prevention plan. It's to do that in a group is really enlightening, because you're getting the benefit of what other people are looking at, struggling with as well. So things that you might not think of to put on that, can be incorporated. But so the betrayed partner starts, part one starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time today. And then we have, again, sex addiction 101, porn addiction 101, the attachment wounds, which Troy will lead on August 30th, inner child with Eddie Caparucci. And I'll tell you what, I love when people take both of those, because I think looking at it from both, lenses is super helpful. So I would invite men, those are for men, to participate in both of those at whatever point works for your schedule. Why men struggle to love, out of the doghouse for men who've been caught cheating. I'll tell you a hint with that. Lots of guys think, oh, I'll just go to that and figure out how to become trustworthy, and then recognize oh, the next question is going to be good, Troy. And then they recognize that, oh wait, I have more to do. I can't just go fix the problem. I have to work on myself and getting that that foundation. Before I can build trust, I have to work on being trustworthy. So great content. And we only offer this one twice a year, but we have the Couples Healing from Betrayal work group starting I think the 21st of September with Dr. Susie LeBrock. It's a smaller group. It's for couples. And that is really solid. We always get very positive feedback, but we only offer it twice a year. So that one's 2 hours. Everything else is an hour and a half, although Troy cheats, and I know his go a little bit longer, but that's just Troy. So
Not too much longer, but
okay, good.
sometimes
Okay,
like 5 minutes.
it's all good. Oh, well, that's not bad. I was thinking, whatever. It's
No.
all good. So hopefully that's helpful. You can always email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com if you've got questions, about, any of the work groups or resources. So, okay, here's the big question. What are attachment wounds?
So we are wired for connection, biologically, neurologically, socially, spiritually, energetically, all the ways. And when we're in our mother's womb, we literally are connected to our mothers. And then as we are born and life begins to happen, things will happen that will change the way that things happen that can break those connections. I'm trying to move. My camera's gonna follow me though. Right behind me are the attachment wounds. So things will happen that can break those connections. And over time, depending on the severity of what happens to us or how frequently that happens to us, it can create wounds that are these attachment wounds that get lodged into our body at a cellular level. And as a result, as we continue to grow and the wounds haven't healed, when somebody bumps up against one of these wounds, it will cause us to react viscerally in ways that we may not even understand. So the 6 attachment wounds are loss. Loss comes when we've lost a loved one. We had somebody that was really close to us and they passed away. Loss can come if we ended up getting a terminal illness, or we lost a limb. It could come if we have a best friend that moves away, or we end up moving away. So it's about the relationship we have with people, but it's not done intentionally. Like nobody did this on purpose, but it's part of the world we live. And then for some people, that loss wound can be pretty profound. And even like a smell can bring up memories of that pain, of that loss. Neglect comes when somebody is too busy to spend time with us. So they're not paying attention to us. There's like the child protective services version of neglect, where mom and dad are out doing drugs for days and there's no food in the house and the kids are starving. And that's a pretty atrocious version of neglect. But there's also the kind of neglect where mom and dad are working like crazy and the child is needing comfort, needing attention, needing some support, but mom and dad are too busy. And so the wound results in a core belief that I'm not worthy of your time. And so with that wound, that can be a really a big wound for people. And then as they grow older and they need attention from other people, they can become very needy. And when they don't get that attention from others, they end up believing, well, I'm not worth your time. Rejection is basically when you're told by somebody or a group of somebodies that you're not wanted, you don't belong, you weren't good enough to be a part of this team, you're not good enough to be my friend, I don't want you as my partner. And so you're basically being told there's something wrong with you. Abandonment is when somebody walks out of your life and there's no explanation. One day they're there and then the next day they're gone. And so you don't understand why they left. There's no closure, really. There was no explanation. So you're left making up all kinds of stories as to why the person left. Probably none of them are accurate that indicate why they left. And usually the core belief with that is I can't depend on anybody to actually be there for me because everybody's going to leave. Betrayal is when you have a relationship of trust with somebody and then they do something that violates that trust. They do something that breaks that. They cheat on you, they lie to you, they take credit for something that you've done, they've ruined something that was really important to you. And so that creates a betrayal. And the core belief that can go with that is like, nobody is trustworthy. I can't trust anybody. And then the last wound is abuse, which is really a combination of all the others, but it can involve sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, where somebody is inflicting harm on you because they're of their own wounds. But so those are the attachment wounds, and they're like sunburns. So if you've ever had a sunburn, and it doesn't it when somebody touches you when you have a sunburn, you're very reactive. And so you become very cautious. You don't want anybody to touch you. But once the sunburn goes away, you're not as cautious. Like you're willing to let people come in. And so that's like that. Something could happen, a smell, a sound, a touch, a look, and behavior can hit that attachment wound. And then our body goes into fight or flight response as a result.
Yeah, I was thinking with neglect, I mean, there are people that, it's like they have to work three jobs just to support the family. And so there's neglect, like with without any malice or without any,
Yeah.
mental health issues, that can be the case. I was thinking, because I was like, oh, my abandonment wound is getting poked the other day. And I was like, oh, after you said that, I was like, maybe it was betrayal. I don't know. And I will do more reflecting on it. But just having the ability to articulate, this is a wound that is getting poked, so that I wasn't, you were talking about the sunburn. I wasn't having to feel the sunburn, like
Mhm.
I owned that it hurt, and that there was something real, and then I could make a choice, which was different than, just having that, fight or flight, I gotta leave, or whatever, react. And so I think understanding that we're human beings, we, unintentionally or intentionally, can hurt people, but we can also be hurt by people. I think it's really helpful. Some people, sometimes it is, if I'm curious and ask, like I'll find out, oh, the story I'm telling myself is really radically different. And sometimes it really is, that person in their brokenness is unable to show up. And but being able to use my thinking part of my brain, and look at that is different than the just reacting. So I think having the ability to identify, at least get close, is helpful. I may not have had it right. So hopefully that's helpful for that. And he's done others, on this, and he goes into the voices of shame. And if we have time, you may be pulling that one out. So, okay. So the next one is, the longer I'm on this earth and the longer on my personal journey of healing, the more insights pop up. And my question is, how do I deal with the things that we never had? I don't mean the loss of, but attachment, love, support, and many more things. I love this question. And yes, like I love that you're continuing the journey like me. I mean, and Troy, we're all looking, no, not everybody is willing to be on the journey and continue to look at things. So thank you for sharing that.
So to me, that's still a lost wound, even though you never had it in the first place. Um, so you missed out on things because of life, right? So um, I remember my aunt and uncle bought a boat, and they would take their kids out um, going water skiing all the time. And my parents didn't have a boat, and I would I would feel jealous, and I'm not saying that that's what you're feeling, but I would feel jealous that they had that and I didn't have that. And I was a young teenager, and so I'd say stupid things. And somehow or other, my aunt heard about that, and she confronted me on that, and and helped me understand that part of the reason why they bought the boat is because they were a Brady Bunch family. He had 4 kids and she had 5. And that was a way to put them all in the same small confined space and have them work together and have fun together. And that was part of what made their family so unified. And that helped me change the perspective. But I didn't have that. And I still have never had that. And so what have I come to believe about myself because I didn't have that, whatever that was? I didn't, let's say, I didn't have a dad, or I didn't have a mom, or I didn't have a romantic, I've never had a romantic relationship, or whatever that is like, how do you deal with the things that you've never had? Part of that is, well, what have you come to believe about yourself because you've never had that? So that's the first part, is like, what's the stories? Is there shame around that? Is there jealousy around that? Um, could you get it today if you wanted it? But kind of just leaning in and becoming curious about that. Um, because once we, because really the it's not that you didn't have that, that's the problem. It's that it's what you've come to believe about yourself. I've missed out on something. I can't have something, those kind of core beliefs. And those beliefs are probably not true. Um, or if they are true, there's a place of coming to acceptance about that. So I'm 5'9", and I've never been tall, and I'm never going to be tall. And so there are stories that my shadows will show up and tell me that if I were just taller, I would have more success, or if I were just this or that. And I guess the truth is, I could go get surgery and have them break my legs and put rods in my legs and make me taller, or I could get some shoes that make me an inch taller. Like, I could do some things, but at the end of the day, what's the story I've come to believe about myself because I'm 5'9"? And is it true? And can I be enough? So I don't know if I answered any of what you were saying, but it's really, what have I come to believe about myself? And can I find a place of acceptance for what is?
Yeah, and I hope on your journey, for me, I have been grateful, not always 100%, but been grateful for the continued learnings. And, that, I like myself better now than I did 2 years ago. And I'm confident if I stay on this journey, in 2 years, I'll feel this, similarly, so it makes me willing to continue to dig in and do the work. And I spend more days in serenity, on that, in that peaceful place, than I did in the chaos. So all of that makes me very willing to do the work. And I hope you're finding that for you too, that, it's a journey. I wrote a blog a while back about, because I like to hike, and was hiking the Grand Canyon. I really do like to hike. And like, there was this beautiful vista, as you're coming up, and it's hard. It's just playing hard. And, as you're coming up and you look out and you see these winding trails, and I use that as an analogy for my life, because my life has been twisty turns and all of that. And there have been moments when it was pretty easy, you're kind of going downhill and things are coasting along, or you're going uphill. But I was also cognizant that I had people along the way that were there, helping me and motivating me, that I could lean into. And so, and I'm sitting there looking at the stunning view, and I thought, if I wasn't willing to do the hard work, I wouldn't have had that beautiful view. And so like that perspective for me was really helpful. So keep keep at it, please keep checking in. Okay, next one: recovering sex and love addict here. I've struggled with transparency for a long time. I believe this hiding and secret keeping goes back to various fears from childhood. In recovery, I feel like I've made real progress. However, in my partner's eyes, I continue to disappoint. Do I need to change my program up? Do I need to work on wounds? What tips might you have so that I can make a breakthrough?
So it's hard for me to give you a lot of specifics because I don't know you, and I don't know what's going on. I can commend you for the work that you've done, and you're absolutely right that hiding and keeping secrets and holding all of that stuff does stem from those childhood experiences, especially those attachment wounds of rejection, loss, neglect, abandonment, those kind of things. And so the core belief is, if I tell you the truth, you're going to reject me. If I tell you the truth, you're going to leave me, because it's what I've done is so horrible and so awful that you are going to find me so disgusting, and so you're going to leave. That's what the shame stories are saying, or you're going to get in trouble, right? So if you tell that you took the cookie out of the cookie jar, you're going to get in trouble. And so you better not tell in order to prevent you from getting hurt. So it does stem from that. Um, I use the analogy sometimes of the trust jar. So when you're in a relationship and you've been going along, every day, you and your partner both are putting marbles in the trust jar. So if you ever went to a school where the teacher had a jar, and if the students behaved well, then she would put marbles in the jar. And if the marbles got to the top, then you'd have a popcorn party. But if the class was not behaving well, then they would take the marbles out of the jar. And it was an incentive to try and motivate the students to behave. Well, we have a trust jar for everybody in our lives. And so your partner has a trust jar for you, and you have a trust jar for your partner. Oftentimes when D-Day happens and your partners discovered that you've been dealing with all this, and it's a shock and a surprise to them, all of the marbles got dumped out of the jar. And sometimes the jar shattered into a million pieces, and we've had to super glue it back together. So now you've been working on recovery for a long time, and there are probably some marbles that your partner's put back in the jar, but your partner is looking at what it used to be like and where it's now. And so your partner is still like, I still don't trust you. I'm still worried. I'm still afraid. I'm still concerned. Like, and am I going to lose all these marbles again? Are you going to do something that's going to make me dump out all the marbles again? So there's a lot of fear about where the trust is. And for the person who's lost the trust, that can feel daunting, especially when you felt like you've put so much time and effort into recovery, and you've been trying to be honest. And you just have to recognize that this is going to take a long time. So part of that is being patient. As far as the attachment wounds, both of you, I'm biased, but whatever. I think both of you would do well to work on these wounds together, because your partner's working on betrayal and you're probably working on rejection or abandonment or something like that. And so when you're able to look at your behavior from a wound perspective instead of a deviant perspective of like there's something wrong with you, but because you're both hurting, that can sometimes create the space in which you both can provide support and healing for each other, because we're not so caught up on what you're doing but we're more caught up on what I'm needing, and can you help me get that need met, and vice versa. So I don't want you to change whatever you're doing in your program without talking to a sponsor or a therapist or somebody like that. But there's always more work to do. Like the last person said, we're always on a journey to learn more. And so part of that is taking a look at, well, what are my wounds? How do I try to numb those wounds? What do I do? What are my partner's wounds? And what can I do to protect those wounds and to help create a space of healing for my partner? And it may be different than it may be different than what you think it is. And part of that will be asking your partner what would help. So hopefully that was helpful.
It is. And if we're going to go through the questions, but if we have time, I'm going to ask you to go through those, the shadows of shame, because what I hear is there's something that's some voice that's telling you, don't tell that one. You better hold on to that one. But let's go through the questions. And then if we do, I would really like you to do that.
Sure.
Okay. I am struggling with a lot of neglect and no commitment to me or our marriage. He has gone to many recovery centers, including SA meetings, and gone to conventions, etc. My partner commits to doing recovery work. I do not see the actions that match his words. I've been in the marriage for 25 years and have suffered greatly while he acts out and pretends that he is doing recovery. We've been going to couples therapy since the beginning of the marriage. It is an abusive marriage. He is not available. I have not worked during the entire time of our marriage for over 20 years, and would be very difficult time if we separated or divorced. What help and recovery is there for me? Can you suggest, or would you help me, or what would help me to tolerate and accept this situation or move forward where I am, where I know I will have many difficulties in reestablishing myself, finding a new place to live and moving forward. It will be very combative. I do not have the resilience for either. I mean, staying or being abandoned or leaving.
So part of my first question for you, it sounds like you've gone to couples therapy, but my question is, have you gone to any kind of support for you? There's a lot of resources that are available at Seeking Integrity that are free for partners. We have drop-in groups. We have specialists who've been working with betrayal trauma and are beautiful in the work that they do. And so those are all free, and it maybe will help you connect with some of the other women who are in very similar situations as yourself. Part of the sadness that I feel is like this has been going on for 20, 25 years, and you've identified that it's an abusive relationship. So staying in a relationship that's abusive for so long has the effect of really anchoring in and cementing those negative core beliefs that I don't matter, that I'm not enough, that I am not worth your willingness to treat me respectfully. I'm not worthy of being treated kindly. And there's a part of you that doesn't agree with that, and there's another part of you that does agree with that. And so that's what makes like setting and enforcing boundaries so difficult, is if I really don't believe that I am enough and that I matter, it's going to be really hard for me to say I'm not okay with this behavior, and things have got to change, or here's what I'm going to do. I love that you say that that you want to rediscover yourself and to find you. So I guess my first hope is that you would find a therapist for you if you don't have one already. Please join the drop-in groups for the women betrayed partners that are here, so that you can start developing a network of support. You Those are the two things that I would recommend first. This is going to be like you've been with this, I'm assuming, a man for 25 years. So like this has been your life. And so walking away, just is not going to be easy, and I'm not saying that you should, but if it's going to be a journey and you're going to need some support along the way.
Yeah, and I mentioned the work group that is starting right now, but they talk about healthy boundaries, and I know lots of people who stay in the relationship but have, healthy boundaries, so they are not completely, affected all the time by what he is or isn't doing. And I'm really sorry, but we have had so many guys that have come to our residential program who have lied about recovery, have been that guy in the program who is like, I'm Mr. Recovery, and they were lying to themselves and everybody else. And and one, I remember he'd taken a 4-year chip, and he was like, one of the hardest things was having to go back to RCA, which is Recovering Couples Anonymous, and tell all of them as well that that he had been lying, to himself, to his partner, and everybody in the group. So lying is unfortunately part of the issue with addiction, but in recovery we learn to do things differently. And I hear that he is not there yet, but going back to you, healthy boundaries for you. I put the drop-in group that starts at 12:30 today, for Betrayed Partners Pacific time. I put the link for all of the drop-in groups, and you can add them to your calendar. But there are other people. But we talk about healthy boundaries, for your safety, not punishment about what he's doing. It's for your safety, and how do you create that safety and connection with other healthy people. And other Betrayed Partners are a safe group for you. So I hope you lean into that.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure, please.
So I'm reading a book by John Gottman right now, and he said a sentence that kind of made me mad. But he said, people don't change. At their core, who they are and how they treat others will not change. That's true for men, and it's true for women. So I wouldn't do this job if I didn't believe that people can't change. But what he's saying is, like, fundamentally, if somebody is abusive and they're not willing to do the deep and introspective work that's going to be required to work on those wounds and healing, they're probably not going to. And so we stay with them thinking, oh, they're going to get better and they're making progress. And then they don't. And then another year goes by and another year goes by. So I wouldn't do this job if I didn't believe that people could change, but I understand what the principle is. Like, it requires humility and honesty, and a lot of people are not willing to do that work. So please know that you are worthy of doing the work for you, even if your spouse doesn't.
Well said. Okay. How do you know when it is safe to discuss your attachment needs with someone who has previously betrayed you?
So I want you to ask yourself, like, what does safety feel like for me? When I'm with somebody that I trust, when I'm with somebody that I feel like I can be open with, how do I know that in my body? How does my body give me signals that I'm in a safe environment in which to be vulnerable? And even with the safest person, I'm still sometimes going to be scared to share some of my stuff because of the fear of rejection and all those kind of things. But how do I know that that is how I feel? So part of that is tuning into your body and knowing what safety feels like. And then as you consider the person who's with you, what do I need that would help me feel that way with this person? Um, this person has previously betrayed me, so obviously most of the marbles in the trust jar are gone. So what would I need in order to be able to put some marbles back in the jar? What would I need from my partner or my person in order to be able to talk about my wounds of loss or rejection and those kind of things in a way that feels safe? And can I ask for that? So that's the short answer. Part of it requires vulnerability, and part of it requires trial and error. Part of it requires both of you to have some skills to know how to do that, to talk about it without getting defensive and going into blame and protesting and victimization, because oftentimes when I start talking about my hurt and the other person isn't able to see my hurt, all they hear is they think I'm accusing them, they get defensive. At least that's what I do. I think, oh, you're blaming me, and then I get all mad. And so being able to figure out how to say, hey, I want to talk about my pain, but it's not about you. So can you hold space and listen to my pain without making it all about you? That might be a way. But sometimes you might need a couples counselor who can help you figure out how to do that on together. But those are my thoughts.
Well, and I was thinking, because even the attachment needs, because like that can be a loaded, like, oh, I'm telling you my needs, so you have to meet them, and and that can be a point of inadequacy. So I think I love having the can you hold space for me while and I want to know about yours, like having it be a conversation of like, let's do this work together, and here's what I've learned about myself, and this is what gets poked for me, and not having the expectation that that person is going to fix it all, but just recognizing that if I'm feeling like this, what are some things that I can do that will help me, without switching the burden to somebody else. I mean, that's been hugely helpful for me. Thank you, Troy Love. So,
You're
because
welcome.
that's where I learned it. So, okay. Is there a connection between rejection wounds and entitlement?
Yes, yes, there is. So I'm trying to. My computer's weird. Well, my camera's weird. If you notice, it like follows me where I go. So when I try to put a background up, my head gets in the way. So sorry about my big head. But okay, Tammy was asking about this, and so I'm gonna share this with you. Okay, these are the shadows of shame. These are so shame is a deep and abiding belief that I'm flawed and defective and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. So that's some pretty hefty core stories that are being told, and they're usually being told in our head. So what I've learned how to do is take them out of my head and actually turn them into characters that talk to me. And so each one of them has a different job, a different role, but each one of them is trying to help me deal with my wounds. So wounds of rejection, wounds of abandonment, wounds of betrayal, abuse, all those things in a really maladaptive, awful way. So I'm going to go through all of them, and then it will get to your question because I think you'll figure it out. So we have the judge first, wherever it is. We have the judge first. And the judge is the voice in your head that's like also known as the inner critic. It tells you that you're not enough, that you're flawed, you're defective, there's something seriously wrong with you, and you're not perfect enough, and you need to try harder so you can be perfect. And if you're perfect, then nobody will reject you. I'm going to skip the royal and come back to that one in a second. The politician is the voice that says, don't tell anybody that you've made any mistakes because nobody will vote for you. Nobody will like you. So you got to put on a mask, pretend that everything's just fine. And then no, don't let anybody see your flaws and defects because they will reject you. The martyr says that you are responsible for being the hero to everybody else. You have to take care of everybody else. Your needs don't matter. Nobody else, everybody else's needs matter more than yours. And so if you could just sacrifice yourself for the greater good, then nobody will reject you. Impotent one says, no matter what you do, you're always going to be rejected. No matter how hard you work, nobody's going to like you anyway. So you should probably just give up and stop trying and just cave in and give up. The rebel says, screw that. Who cares? Who cares if anybody rejects you? Do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want whenever you want. Doesn't matter if it's illegal. Just go live your life and have fun, and who cares, and flip the bird to everybody. And then there's the royal, which a lot of people don't think they have, but you do. The royal is the voice that tells you that you are entitled, that you deserve, that you have privileges that everybody else doesn't have, and that people should recognize how entitled and how deserving you are just because of your you. So your connection is, what's the connection? Your question was, what's the connection between rejection wounds and entitlement? Well, there's the connection. When my rejection wound is being hit, my royal can say, oh my gosh, you didn't get that job, you didn't they told you you weren't enough. You deserve you deserve to go give yourself a big treat. You deserve to go eat as much ice cream as you want, or you deserve to go have a drink even though you've had 10 years of sobriety. You deserve this. You're entitled to being able to be taken care of for yourself. So it's a very devious shadow, because a lot of people don't recognize it, but it gives me permission to treat other people badly. It gives me permission to treat myself badly, and then my rebel will help me not feel guilty about it. But that sense of entitlement, I deserve this because I'm wounded. Can't you? And so I deserve this because this bad thing happened to me. So that's the connection. And if I run with that, it's only going to cause me and the people around me pain and suffering.
Thank you. Okay. How do I deal with the fact that my partner refuses to talk about anything, acts like nothing's wrong? D-Day was 8 months ago. We have been married 11 years. I told him that if I can't heal here at home, that I would move out. Not a word. Anytime I tell him about what has happened to me and how broken I am, nothing from him. He's always been very good to me, but I just don't understand.
Um, what I'm picking up on that is that your partner is very sealed off, and probably is dealing with a tremendous amount of shame, or, well, so there's a spectrum, and on one side of the spectrum we have empathy, and on the other side of the spectrum we have shame. So the more shame that I have in my life, the less capacity I to have empathy for somebody else's pain and suffering. So because I don't know y'all, I'm just making some guesses here, but either your spouse is in so much shame that that is hijacking their ability to have empathy, or there are some people, not very many, there are some people on the planet who do not have the capacity for empathy at all. And that's because they don't have any shame. um, so they, and so I'm, you've said he's always been good to you. So I'm assuming that that means that that's not the case for him. So that's the worst case scenario, is that he actually has no capacity for empathy because he has no shame. But I'm guessing that's not what's going on. I'm guessing he has a lot of shame, and see, he doesn't know what to do. So his idea is to like dig a hole and stick his head in it, and just hope for the best, which is not working. So having finding if he's willing to go to a qualified therapist who can help him start to unpack some of that shame stuff that's going on with him, and take some of those layers of protection off so that he can then start to show up for you in ways that he hasn't been able to do, that would be helpful. Also, if he's willing to go to some of the groups and support groups that we have for men, but also maybe you can go to that for you. At the end of the day, like you've you've said that this is not tolerable for me in the long term. And if he does not learn how to do this, it's not going to get any better. So I love that you're being honest with him about it. I'm hoping that he'll take some action, and I'm hoping you also will do some self-care for yourself, and know that his inability to talk about this, his wanting to pretend that nothing happened, isn't about you, um, as much as it's hurt you, but it's not about you. It's about his own deep shame that's led him to try and live dissociated, really.
Yeah. I mean, we get this type of client at our residential treatment program because they are so I want closed off, or shut down emotionally, and if he has stopped the problematic behavior, like if that's a maladaptive coping mechanism and he's not doing that, like he has even less coping skills unless he's really leaning into, S 12-step groups, our drop-in groups, all of those things, which I'm not hearing, with what, it feels like I'm not going to talk about this. I'm just going to pretend that I'll, like we had D-Day, it was really bad, and bury my head in the sand. So like Troy said, I honor that you are holding healthy boundaries for you. And one more thing, and I'm not saying this is you, but there is a drop-in group. I put the link for the drop-in group since somebody asked about Troy doing attachment wounds with women. Every other Thursday, he has the drop-in group for betrayed partners. So please look at that on the drop-in group. But there's a drop-in group that we just started at the end of June called Moving On Alone. And it is for people who are leaving, have left, have been left, or someone died. Like we've had that where its discovery was after he died, and that is another painful situation. But it's also for people who are considering, like they've got a foot out the door. So check that one out. They're free. It's an hour. So that may be useful too, but healthy boundaries for you. I mean, that's what we talk about, like including on that work group. It's like, what are your healthy boundaries? Not punishment against him, but what are your needs? Identifying those and how do you get those met, regardless of what he's doing or not doing. So, okay, Troy, I wonder if you guys experienced extreme exhaustion during your own journey. Do you recognize this? I'm a betrayed and suffer from PTSD and childhood trauma. I am so exhausted and tired, but life goes on and things to take care of. Will this get better?
No, I'm never experienced. Yes, I do experience extreme exhaustion sometimes, and I have to take a time out, which you're right, like there's things to do, kids to take care of, clients to show up for, job to do, like life goes on. And in some ways that's my saving grace, is because I know I have something to do to show up for. And so I do, even though I'm so tired. So first I want to honor that, yes, that is a real experience for a lot of people. And I don't think we talk about it as much. And so we look at other people, and the stories that our shadows say is like, they got everything together and their lives are great and nothing bad's happening to them. And here I am feeling like trash because I'm so tired. And the truth is, no, that person's just as tired too. They just aren't saying it. So you are dealing with betrayal, you're dealing with PTSD, you're dealing with trauma. Man, trauma work is hard. It is so hard. And yes, you're tired. So it's a thing that we all say, and none of us, I think, are as good as it is we need to be, which is self-care. So what do we do to take care of myself, even if it's for 5 minutes, even if it's for 30 minutes? What can I do for me every day to just be, to love on myself and give myself permission to do whatever I need to do, would cry, whatever. What can I do for me? And I think all of us could do a little bit better with self-compassion, but part of that is honoring that you're suffering, and that's okay too. So
Yeah, I've had a couple of times in the last couple of months where I just like stated, I am overwhelmed. And just owning that I was overwhelmed, like it helped. For me, a lot of it is I just have to own it, not pretend that it's not there. I hope that you're working with a qualified professional on that trauma. There's lots of different techniques. I personally have had EMDR and it was hugely helpful for me, but there's lots of different methods, but working, being intentional to go, okay, I'm going to work on this. I mean, it literally, some of those things were transformative, and being able to tap back into the skills that I learned, helps. But yeah, the self-care, like, yeah, I mean, like there's a lot on all of our plates, and just taking, a breathing exercise. And Tori's talked about those on previous, webinars and things, but whatever it is, sometimes the highest priority thing, like what's doing the next right thing, it is self-care. We talk all the time too about, you get on the airplane and they say, put your oxygen mask on first. You can't be helpful to everybody else if you're completely depleted. So doing the self-care, making sure you're going to bed on time, creating the environment, to get rest, whatever it is that you need, that is self-care. I'm glad you're here. Hopefully this is part of your self-care too, taking care of you. The next question, Troy, how do I locate a sponsor?
So sponsors are usually located in 12-step rooms, or groups. So if you have a local 12-step group that you're attending, um, there will be somebody there who would be willing to be your sponsor. Or if you're attending any online ones, which are, thanks to COVID, are much more abundant than they used to be. And so there's a couple ways that people will do that. They will just say, hey, I'm looking for a sponsor. But really, when you start to go to the meetings, you might, as you're looking around and take a look, is there somebody that seems to have been in recovery for a while? They seem to have learned some stuff. They have some wisdom. They have some really good boundaries. Those kind of things are things that you can look for. And then you go ask them, hey, would you be willing to be my sponsor? And some people are willing to be a sponsor for multiple people. Some people have never been a sponsor before, and so they may be a little reluctant of what that looks like. But they've had their own sponsor, and some sponsors are pretty rigid and tell you what they expect from you, and some are a little bit more laissez-faire. So you try it out and see if you like that person, and then if it works, great, and if it doesn't, then you might go find another sponsor. So that's how you find them. You can, I think there might be some blogs in the Seeking Integrity about what to look for in a sponsor, but you want to look for somebody who has had some recovery under their belt, has worked through all the 12 steps themselves, is honest, somebody that is going to hold you accountable, kindly, not shaming. But those are some things you're going to want to look for.
Yeah, and it isn't a lifelong commitment, and I have people that go, I need somebody now, and then, they transition because they got what they needed from that person. But, like Troy said, make sure it's somebody who's working the steps. We heard earlier about somebody who's going to meetings and looking like Mr. 12-step, but isn't working the program. So you got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So, okay, but yeah, ask. Why does it seem like everyone I come into contact with has severe attachment wounds? Having gone through betrayal more than once, I'm beginning to feel that it seems like everyone operates unhealed. In the US, the majority of court systems don't recognize the severity of the destruction caused by cheating and abuse. Betrayed partners also suffer because everyone cheats, and we often are told either get over it or leave. Why has society not recognized this destruction of kids and families?
Yeah, right. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Why is it that everybody seems you come in contact has severe attachment wounds? Because everybody that you come in contact with has severe attachment wounds. I can count on like one hand the people that I've talked to who are like, no, I don't have any attachment wounds, and I'm like, you either lived in a Barbie house and life has been wonderful for you, or you are not being honest. Um, there are some people who just seem to have sailed through life without any significant challenges, and I'm totally jealous of them. But most of the other people in the world have, and it really kind of went downhill when the Industrial Revolution started in the 1920s, and families started separating from each other. Before, like everybody lived on the farm and they all worked together, and not that attachment wounds didn't exist back then, but then things started to happen and families started to disintegrate, and then we had a World War I and then World War II, and so things have gone downhill a lot, and there is a lot of pain and suffering. So I think that's why Tammy and I do this, is to try and let people know that there are wounds and there's actually a way to heal them too.
Yeah, and I think probably you're seeing it because you're aware of it. I think most people go through life, pretty clueless on this count. So you have your eyes open and are paying attention. As for court systems and everything else, I mean, like, don't even get me started. But it's like all of these things, in the DSM, sex and porn addiction are not yet identified. And I hate when I hear, and I hear it regularly, oh, just get over it, or every guy cheats or whatever. No, that's not the case. And it really is just disingenuous to say that that's, or make it so trivial, because it's very painful. So glad you're here. If we could solve all of this, we'd probably solve world peace at the same time. So okay, to add on to the question about when is it good to open up to someone who has committed betrayal, he is very good at making me feel safe when acting out behind my back. So I no longer trust my body and my feelings of safety. Also, he will mirror what the couples therapist says to do while still acting out. He is Jekyll and Hyde, empathy and understanding on the surface while keeping secrets underneath. The couples therapist agrees that this is not at all a safe situation in which to do couples therapy. Any further thoughts on how to know when it is safe to even receive empathy from such a person?
Well, the person has to stop lying and stop hiding and doing things behind your back, which that's the challenge, right? You're not going to know whether or not the secrets always come out, but you're not going to know if the person's really good at lying and all of those kind of things. It's not going to feel safe for a really long time. And I would, if I were working with you, I would be wanting to make sure that he's in intensive therapy. He's going to all kinds of groups. He's doing all kinds of work. And even that does not guarantee that the person isn't still acting out. They can lie. But I would want to see, I would need to see changes in behavior before I'd open up. So I would agree with your couples therapist that right now, active betrayal is still happening, and that's never going to produce safety enough for you to be vulnerable with him.
Yeah, I agree, and it is why we don't recommend couples. I'm so glad your couples therapist is identifying that this isn't safe, but I would really encourage you to get a codependent aligned betrayed partner support person, help you have the healthy boundaries for you. Again, not punishment against him, but so that you have that safe place. You can talk to your tribe, your posse of people about what your attachment wounds are and everything, and they'll be safe. But clearly he's manipulating it and lying. And that's sad. I was just sharing with somebody the other day again about, it hurts betrayed partners, but an addict is living in a very small world focused on manipulation, lies, the false life, and life in recovery, is that beautiful vista that I mentioned earlier. Like, my life is big, not a little tiny life, focused on just, my acting out and keeping all the lies straight. Okay, so last question. Betrayed partner here. My abandonment and rejection wounds have been on fire since my partner disclosed with me that and my sleeping has been terrible. What techniques can I use to distract myself?
Well, I don't want you to distract yourself.
I agree. Yeah.
What techniques can you use to ground yourself? What techniques can you use to work through that? I'm so sad. I mean, it makes sense, especially if some of the stuff that your partner shared with you was a surprise, that your abandonment and your rejection wounds are like on fire, as you described, and you're not sleeping well. So when that's happening, what do you need? And you're probably not going to be able to get it from your partner right now, but it doesn't mean you can't get it from other people. But what do you need? So do you need presence? Like, the opposite of abandonment is presence. So do you need some people who can just hold space for you and listen as you share, like, oh my gosh, this is what he said and it was awful, and I feel like, who can hold space for you? Who's going to do that in a way that's not judgmental and is not going to like freak out on your spouse, put your spouse down, because you don't need that either. So who can hold space for you and be there present with you? The opposite of rejection is acceptance. So who can validate for you that what you're feeling is normal, and who can validate that you are enough and that you are worthy of love and belonging, even if he's done the behaviors that he's done. What can you do to remind yourself that you are enough yourself? What can you do to accept yourself? Can you practice breathing? Can you journal? Can you listen to some music? Can you um, go get a pedicure? Can you go attend one of the drop-in groups that we have going on? Or can you go to a meeting? Can you call your best friend? Can you reach out? Like, I know that some of these things are hard to do, especially if they don't know, but um, but are there things that you can do to honor what you're feeling instead of trying to distract what you're feeling?
So I noted the betrayed partner drop-in group is at 12:30 today Pacific time. There's another one at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Like there are resources to connect with safe people, and like a friend may or may not know. So you may or may not be safe. You can talk about other things and that could be distracting, but yeah, leaning into what do I need to do to take care of me, and I hope you're working with a qualified professional because that will help. And the betrayed partner work group that started today, don't worry, there's a couple spots left. People do join even having missed part of it, but like solid information and support to help you on this path. Nobody signed up to be a betrayed partner at x amount of months or years into the relationship, but here you are, and you can be empowered and you can learn more about yourself. You can have a better relationship with yourself and hopefully with your partner if they get into recovery than you ever had really before. So, but I honor that you are on fire right now, but there are ways to ground and get connect with people. We have life rings. We're throwing them out. Please grab them. So okay, we are done and we are out of time. So thank you, Troy. I will see you in 4 weeks. But I put in there the work group starts next week, Wednesday. So there are spots left for men to work on attachment wounds. Really good information, as you can tell. And join the drop-in groups. There's one for women, betrayed partners on alternating Thursdays, and then every Friday he's on with a guy. So check all those out. Thank you, Troy. Take
You're
care.
welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for the great questions, too. Bye.